Thank you. There, I've told everyone. Many decades ago, I volunteered to be a Rebbe in a very small Mesivta high school in Miami Beach. And they didn't have funds to pay for a third Rebbe. So I volunteered to do it. And every morning I taught Gemara. And I was older then than any of the other Rebbeim. And we had a Talmud whose name was Pinchas. Pinchas Ackerman, I remember. And his Rebbe, he wasn't at my shiur, his Rebbe gave a bechina, a test, and naturally you had to write your name on the test so he knew who it was. And so he wrote his name Pinchas, but he spelled it Pei Yud Nun Het Samach. And the Rebbe, for some reason, marked it wrong, that he couldn't even write his own name. Because the usual way that we write Pinchas is without a Yud. Pei Nun Het Samach. And in fact, there's a whole discussion in the poskim that when it comes to write a ktuba, or unfortunately a get, how do you spell Pinchas? With a yud or without a yud? Because in Tanakh it's spelled both ways. In this week's parsha it's spelled with a yud. But there are places in Tanakh where Pinchas is spelled without a yud. So that always bothered me. What is the yud doing there? And the second problem that exists in this week's parsha immediately is that the Torah reveals who the sinners were. The Torah identifies that Shem Ish Yisrael Amukeh was Zimri ben Solu, the sea base of Lashimoni, and the woman was Cosby Bastur, who was from the royal house of the Midyanim. Now, the policy of the Torah, generally, as recorded for us in the Talmud, is never to record the name of the sinner. So, for instance, we have the din of the Mekoshesh, who violated Shabbat, gathered the wood on Shabbat, and it doesn't say who he was. So Rabbi Akiva came in the Gemara and said that was Tzlofchos. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema said to him, Akiva, a Torah machape olav, the Torah covers over. Doesn't say who it was, Bato Megale, and you tell her, you reveal it. My Rebbe used to say in Yiddish, he used to say, this is not shame. It's not nice to do that. And the same thing by the Begadev, the one that cursed. The Torah doesn't tell us his name. And here, the Torah not only tells us his name, the whole yichus and what his job was. Why? That's out of character. So the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, whose yortzeit is this week, today, So he says the Torah did it to emphasize that he didn't kill just Mr. Goldberg. He killed someone that was Nasi Beisov Lashimoni. He was the Nasi. He was the head of the tribe. He was a person of importance. And he was a person that the tribe would want to take vengeance. And Pinchas didn't hold back. And he went ahead anyway. So that's why the Torah is Megale. That's why the Torah reveals, in order to emphasize the depths of kanoas, so to speak, that possessed Pinchas. According to tradition, Pinchas is the only kanoi that we ever had. The Gemara says Pinchas zu Elio, but we don't have many kanoim. Because to be a kanoi, to be a zealot, it requires a degree of godliness that most human beings can't attain. It requires that there be no personal motive whatsoever involved there. There's no side issue. And therefore, Pinchas is special, he's the exception. So that explains to us why the Torah had to devote an entire parsha to justify Pinchas, because when we look at it on the surface, he's a murderer. He killed two people, right? That he committed a sin. If we went about killing everybody that commits sins, be a sparser population. When he takes the law in his own hands, so the Gemara says, "A boy laram is kanoim bo pogim bo." A kanoi can do it. In all of Klal Yisrael, there's Moshe and everybody else, Elazar HaKohen, that nobody else is a kanoi. Nobody else felt that they could do anything. And he went ahead and did it. So how do I know that he did not have some sort of ulterior motive? How do I know that he was pure? And we would never know that, except that the Torah now has to tell us that. The kano is kinosi, the Soch B'nai Yisrael, what he did, I approve of, heaven says. Meaning he knows say lo as brisi shalom, and we make him the Kohen Gadol. He's the Kohen Gadol in the time of Yoshua and the Shoftim, and most of the Kohanim Magdolim, certainly in Bayis Rishon, are descended from him. So the Torah had to justify it, because ordinarily you cannot justify acts of kanos. Acts of kanos lead to all sorts of problems. And sometimes it's only a manifestation of a mental defect in the kanoi himself. So how do we know this was perfect? How do we know? How does the Torah indicate to us? Even lo as brisi shalom. You'll notice, by the way, that the vov in shalom is a vov ketiyah. It's got a slash in it. It's not complete because he achieved the kanos by violating shalom. So even that is not perfect. So therefore, to indicate that to us, the Torah spelled Pinchas with a Yud. The first time we meet him here in this parsha. Because Yud is one of the letters of God's name. And it therefore signifies that he did it for the purpose of heaven. It therefore signifies that it wasn't just a rash act, but it was something that possessed him in order to sanctify the name of heaven and in order to impress upon the Jewish people the severity of sexual immorality. The Gemara says, Kodesh Baruch Hu soneh zima, Elokeim shaleleh soneh zima. God despises that kind of immorality because that is a complete cheapening of the human being. The human being then becomes only an animal. And Pinchas rises above that. And Pinchas does an act that would reverberate throughout the ages, that whenever the parsha is read, we are reminded of the fact that we are not animals and that we're held to a different standard. And therefore our behavior has to be different. So part of that reminder lies in the spelling of the name of Pinchas, that there's a Yud there. The Yud is one of the letters of God's name. So there's a godliness there. If you spell Pinchas without the Yud, then it's only Mr. Pinchas. Who knows what drives, what motivates Mr. Pinchas? But if there's a Yud in his name, so then that's an indication that the Torah itself recognized that what he was doing was for the sake of heaven. What he was doing was to save Klal Yisrael. They shouldn't think that such things go unpunished. And therefore the Torah spelled his name Molech with a Yud. We see the Yud, then we know that Pinchas L'Shem Shamayim is God. And that is why Inini Nosein Lo as Brisi Shalom, even if it's imperfect, but the reward for his action is well deserved. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer, Otsa Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Sakos, Es Yisrael Lefichach, Yirbo Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar, Adonai Chavei